and the Taliban. FBI agents working out of the Minneapolis and Phoenix offices tried to alert their superiors. Dr. Park Godfrey, an associate professor of computer science at Toronto's York University, said under oath in a New York courtroom that a longtime associate of his, Susan Lindauer, warned him several times, and as late as August 2001, that we expected a major attack on the southern part of Manhattan, and that the attack would encompass the World Trade Center, an attack that would involve airplanes and possibly a nuclear weapon. Lindauer, who says she was a CIA asset, claimed to have made an attempt to inform John Ashcroft at the Justice Department, who referred her to the Office of Counterterrorism. Which brings us to the whole question of the 19 alleged hijackers. Did you ever wonder how our government came up with their identities so fast? Even before the last plane crashed, the FBI was telling counterterrorism official Richard Clark they had a list of the names. It took 2 years to get indictments on the Lockerbie bombing, but not this time. Except on September 16th, one of the supposed hijackers walked into the consulate in Saudi Arabia. He was actually a pilot for Saudi Airlines. On September 22nd, one of the Flight 11 hijackers announced he was alive and well. 2 more Saudi pilots did the same thing the next day. On September 27th, CBS found hijacker Hamzi, Flight 77, working for an oil refinery in Saudi Arabia. No matter, all these guys are still on the list today as being among the perpetrators. What evidence do we have, then? 2 days after the attacks, our government said it was clear-cut that Osama bin Laden was the man behind it all, and that the Taliban in Afghanistan would soon be handing over its proof. 10 more days went by, at which time Colin Powell said he'd soon show us the documentation. Meantime, in 3 separate statements, bin Laden denied any involvement. On December 13th, the State Department released a video purporting to show him describing the attacks, but before long a lot of people were questioning whether it was authentic. On the day after Christmas, a Taliban official said he'd attended Osama's funeral, but on the 27th of December came a bin Laden video praising al-Qaeda's successful hit on us. Another couple of years went by before a third tape surfaced, October 29, 2004, a few days before the presidential election. Think heightened terror alert, with a blatant taking of full responsibility. However, as of June 6, 2006, the FBI said it had no hard evidence connecting bin Laden to 9/11. He's been charged with several crimes related to terrorist attacks, but not with 9/11. I find that very odd. Not one shred of evidence produced in a courtroom that leads to the conclusion bin Laden spearheaded these attacks. The justice system that works for anything else is suddenly suspended over terrorism. We are led to believe that a hijacker's passport flew out of his pocket when his plane hit the tower, made it safely through 9,000 gallons of jet fuel, and landed to be found on a sidewalk 1,000 feet below. Another hijacker's ID supposedly turned up in the Pentagon wreckage, one of the few pieces that survived. Meantime, awaiting discovery in rental cars left behind at Boston Logan and Washington Dulles airports was enough evidence to convict, had they lived, an Arabic flight manual, a check made out to a Phoenix flight school, maps of Washington and New York, and more. Does this remind anyone else of Oswald leaving behind a paper trail to his purchase of the rifle, or James Earl Ray depositing his bundle full of incriminating evidence near the scene of the crime? Alleged hijacker Mohammed Atta was first said to have left a rented Mitsubishi at Boston Logan, but that story was later changed into a blue or silver Nissan left in Portland, Maine. Didn't seem to matter which vehicle, because both were said to be filled with box cutters and other incriminating items. These guys were all made out to be fanatic, Quran-toting Muslims ready to die for Allah in a holy war against America. Except in their final days, according to people who knew them, they were drinking, visiting strip clubs, soliciting prostitutes, and watching porno on the tube. Atta's girlfriend said he liked to snort cocaine. Atta seemed to be all over the place before 9/11, doing coke in Hollywood, Florida, living in Venice, Florida, near the NSA, and they were drinking, visiting strip clubs, soliciting prostitutes, and watching porno on the tube. Atta's girlfriend said he liked to snort cocaine. Atta seemed to be all over the place before 9/11, doing coke in Hollywood, Florida, living in Venice, Florida, near the NSA, and in Hamburg, Germany. Who some of the hijackers were really working for, at least once upon a time, first came out in Media Tidbits. From Newsweek, September 15, 2001. U.S. military sources have given the FBI information that suggests 5 of the alleged hijackers of the planes that were used in the terror attacks received training at secure U.S. military installations in the 1990s. Same day. New York Times. The Defense Department said Mr. Atta had gone to the International Officers School at Maxwell Air Force Base in Alabama, Mr. Al-Omari to the Aerospace Medical School at Brooks Air Force Base in Texas, and Mr. Al-Ghamdi to the Defense Language Institute at the Presidio in Monterey, California. Well, our military's School of the Americas once helped train the Central American death squads, so our providing lethal skills to terrorists, freedom fighters, shouldn't come as a huge surprise. But it gets stranger still. 2 of the alleged hijackers rented an apartment from and actually lived with FBI informants. The CIA had operational interest in 2 of them, Nawaz al-Hazmi and Khalid al-Midar. FBI agents believed that the agency was protecting Midhar and Hazmi because it hoped to recruit them, or, alternatively, that the CIA was running a joint venture with Saudi intelligence using them. The CIA goes way back with these guys. They were recruited into the secret war against the Soviets in Afghanistan back in the late 1980s. In fact, the term Al-Qaeda is said to have been invented by the CIA to designate a database of recruits into the Mujahideen. Michael Springman was head of the visa section at our embassy in Jeddah from 1987 to 1989, and he remembers granting visas to terrorists who'd been recruited by CIA and sent for training to America. Some of them fought in Bosnia during the 92 to 95 period. Springman can be seen in the documentary Zero, saying that many of the hijackers he read about in the LA Times were once on his visa list in Jeddah. He called the FBI a number of times, who, Springman says, responded, "We'll get back to you." 6 years later, I'm still waiting. Osama bin Laden himself started out helping the CIA in Afghanistan. In 2009, a former FBI translator named Sibel Edmonds dropped a bombshell. The U.S., she said, had kept up intimate relations with bin Laden all the way until that day of September 11th, using him sometimes for ops in Central Asia, including Xinjiang, China. The process Edmonds outlined involved the use of Turkey, with assistance of actors from Pakistan and Afghanistan and Saudi Arabia, as proxies, with those folks in turn employing bin Laden and the Taliban. The goals? Control of the huge energy supplies in Central Asia, for one. Maybe the real reason we invaded Afghanistan? Sibel Edmonds testified for 3.5 hours to the 9/11 Commission, but it ended up being classified. Bin Laden, like 15 of the 19 alleged hijackers, came from Saudi Arabia. Back in October 2003, an article in Vanity Fair had questioned the FBI's letting 6 planes of Middle Eastern nationals, most of them members of the Saudi royal family, fly out of the U.S. soon after 9/11. The 9/11 Commission